YouTube, how's it going? The Goat House is back. And I got my all draft first team and second team for both offense and defense. Fun little video here we can do breaking down some of my favorite draft prospects. But there's still a video to come of my favorite players in the draft, guys. I'm higher on than most. We did all the position rankings. So we got to do trade scenario video and my final mock draft. And then the NFL draft will be here. And we'll be live during it. So 30 minutes before it starts, we'll be live, and we're live during the draft as well, right here on YouTube. You know, going through each pick, predicting each pick when each team is on the clock, giving our reactions and analysis on the picks. Can't wait for the draft. It's almost here. Hopefully you can join us for that. Subscriber goals at 20K. Sport's been unreal lately. Appreciate you guys for that. Click that like button, notification button, and there's our Twitter down there in the bottom right, also in the description. We're going to be live during day 3 in the draft on Twitter, just talking about different picks I like and don't like. So that'll be a good follow there. So let's go to my first team, offense. You know, showing the running backs some love here, get featured here. Josh Jacobs, number 1 running back in the draft. And then quarterback, my number 1 quarterback, Kyler Murray. You know, I don't love this quarterback class, obviously, but Murray, I think, is the best. Main reason why, you know, it's something different coming to the league, something hard to game plan against. You know, it's just a guy you just don't really want to face. You're not really afraid to face the other, 2 top quarterbacks, even though they have solid potential and can be good. So those guys clearly make the top team. You know, Josh Jacobs grown on me even more and more. Even we're getting, my rankings are done. Everything's pretty much finalized, but, his ability to catch the ball is pretty underrated. So I do like Josh Jacobs. And he's obviously on the first team. So let's see some receiver options. We got 2 regular receivers, a slot receiver. You know, these days they pretty much all can do any of it. Same thing almost. And then a tight end. Let's take a look at that. So N'Keal Harry's my number 1 wide receiver. He can do it all. Contested catch, great hands, can play in the slot, can play outside. Can get separation. I think that's a myth. And my second receiver is DK Metcalf, good outside receiver, good deep speed. And then people think he's just a straight line guy. He can do a little more than that. You would like to see more of a sample size of that, and is good in contested catches, just a freak. And the slot, it's a toss-up between A.J. Brown, Marquise Brown. That's still, like I said, pretty much everything's finalized for me, but that's something that I'm still kind of back and forth on. My big board, they're right next to each other, A.J. Brown, Marquise Brown. So I threw A.J. Brown in there. The thing that stands out to me the most about him is his, yards after catch and his movement after catch. It's excellent. So having him in the slot is pretty dominant because he's a pretty good-sized guy, too, for receiver. Tight end, TJ Hawkinson, number 1 tight end, can do it all, can block, can catch, can run. He can be on the field every single down, so he's on my first team as a tight end. And then let's take a look at the offensive lineman. What I like about this offensive lineman class, besides the obvious that it's good, that there's a bunch of guys that you really can move around everywhere. You know, they have experience playing center or guard and tackle, and you can clearly see you can move them around, and that's good for teams because you may need a guard right now, and then there's a lot of teams actually like that. They need a guard, but their future tackle is in question because maybe age or a guy that has injuries, so you can possibly slide him out if you absolutely need to, depending on future draft classes. So I really like the offensive line class, and here's what I got. For left tackle, I like Jonah Williams, a guy that can play guard or center even. And then right tackle, Juwan Taylor, the best right tackle in the draft, instant plug-and-play guy, dominant right tackle. And then my guards, Dalton Risner, originally a tackle. I slid him into guard, and Cody Ford is a very good right tackle, but you can easily slide him into right guard, which I think could happen when he gets drafted. Depends on the teams. And then Garrett Bradbury, clearly the best center. There's a couple good centers, but Bradbury is the best center. Bullies people down there, and can play guard as well. So that's my first team for the offense. So as you can see, I threw the slot position in there. So defense, there's actually a little more positions. I kind of combined a 3-4 and a 4-3. We talk about, pass rush is the most important thing in football. So I wanted to make sure I had 4-3 pass rushers and 3-4 pass rushers, even though in a good class here, guys can do either one. So let's take a look at my defense. And we're featuring another underappreciated position. That's the slot position. Put Chauncey Gardner-Johnson in there, even though he's my number 6 safety at the moment. he's a dominant slot player, and it's a very important position, and he might be the best, and he is the best in my opinion here, slot player in the draft. So very important position, doesn't get enough love, that position, so I threw him in here in the slot spot. And then there's the rest of the DBs to go along with him. I like Greedy Williams, DeAndre Baker. Pretty much a toss-up, very close between Baker and Byron Murphy, even though they're two totally different styles, but I do like Greedy as my number one corner. Taylor Rapp's my number one safety, pretty clear for me. Don't have to think about that one at all. And then for strong safety, I want Juan Thornhill. Really can do it all. Can play deep, can play in the box. Had some time at corner too. Athletic freak, has a ton of interceptions in his career, so he makes it as the second safety in the first team. So let's take a look at some of the linebackers. So we got two traditional linebackers and then two outside linebackers that are more pass rushers. We got to feature the pass rushers as much as we can here. So in terms of the pass rushers, 3-4 outside linebackers, Josh Allen and Brian Burns, two top 10 players for me. Josh Allen happens to be our number 2 player in the draft behind Quinnen Williams, which will go, obviously he made the first team. But they would be dominant 3-4 outside linebackers, but they both can play 4-3 defensive ends. Bottom line is they're good pass rushers. So now we got to go with all the D linemen. We got 4 defensive line spots, 2 defensive end spots. And let's check them out here. So at defensive end, I like Bosa as the best 4-3 defensive end in the draft, defensive end player in the draft here. And then Montez Sweat, who can play either, but I prefer him at the 4-3 end. Freakish athlete, already has solid production too. I think he's ready to go, even with a ton of upside on top of it. And then the D lineman, Ed Oliver, could be a 3 technique in a 4-3, or he can be a 3-4 end. I mean, he has experience at nose. Don't think he'll play there at the NFL level, but the good thing is he can move around all different spots. He's very athletic. And then Quinnen Williams, my number 1 player in the draft. Same thing for him. He can pretty much move around anywhere. Seen him as a 3-4 end. Seen him as a 4-3 D tackle type spot. So I think he can play either. Really can move anywhere. He's my number 1 player in the draft. Dominant, faced double teams and just didn't even face him. And then we went over Chauncey Gardner already. So that's my first team defense. I did 2 teams here. Thought, why not? Let's do 2 teams. So let's go to the offense. Back to the running back. Darrell Henderson's my number 2 running back. Very good vision, very good quickness. That's how he gets to that hole super fast. That's step 1 for running backs. Can they do that? If they can, they check out. They can play as a starter in the next level. And then do they have, can they move after they hit that hole? And Darrell Henderson has speed, quickness, moves. He's a home run hitter, so I like him as my number 2 running back. And then Drew Lock would be my number 2 quarterback. Dwayne Haskins right there with him, but Drew Lock is a big play potential guy, very strong arm, best deep ball in the class. I like Drew Lock. And then let's show the receivers here. It is very tough to come up with some of these receivers and tight ends here because there's so many good ones. But Hakeem Butler is a very good outside receiver. Actually has some time in the slot too. Deebo Samuel, same thing. Can play slot, can play outside. I threw Marquise Brown, the best of the group here, at the slot position. That's basically my next 3 receivers. Marquise Brown. It's a shame I have him on the second team because he can be considered elite. I'm in love with this receiver class. Most of you that watch the channel probably already know that. I really like it. It might be the best of all time. I keep saying it might be. It's probably the best that I can remember. There's 4 elite guys at the top. I'm going to have 4 guys well into the top 20 on my big board. Well into it. So, and then in Butler and Deebo Samuel could be very, very solid, very early day 2 options. Noah Fant, receiving tight end. I do think there's some people that really like Fant over Hockenson. I think there is a gap. Honestly, they're 2 different tight ends, but Fant is my number 2 tight end here, and he makes this team. And then we're on to the offensive lineman. Andre Dillard, it's kind of weird to see him on a second team because he's a very solid left tackle. And then we threw Titus Howard at the right tackle spot, toss-up between him and Yanni Kajus. Kajus currently injured at the moment. Towards the end of the season, unfortunately. Maybe he would be, if he was healthy, be better than Howard right now. Howard is getting some first-round talk, though. I saw it's a pretty good time to, plug that in here. He's getting some first-round talk. Could go late first. Wouldn't completely shock me even before I heard that. I wouldn't be like jump out of my seat. Wow, maybe a little bit. But he's very good. I've been a fan of him, since I've seen him at the Senior Bowl. Once you've seen him there, that makes you go back and watch him because it's not really a guy that you're watching every Saturday. You're watching mainly the big school. So, but he's very impressive for how strong he is. He's pretty quick, good hands too. So we'll see if he goes late 1. Could be smoke. I'm going to say he's going to go early day two. Chris Lindstrom could also be a sneaky guy. Both these guards, Chris Lindstrom and Caleb McGarry, who's actually a right tackle, but teams like him sliding in the right guard, possibly, maybe even left guard. So these two guys could actually go late 1-2. They're right there with Howard. So I think out of the three sneaky guys going, well, we'll talk about McCoy too. McCoy, the center, second best center. He's from Texas A&M. I talked about him going against Quinnen Williams. Williams won most of the battles. That's because he's the best player in the draft. But McCoy held his own there. He did pretty well. So really looking at, we know Dillard's going first. Looking at Lindstrom, even McCoy, McGarry, Howard, all four of those guys are sneaky first-round potential guys. But if I had to say, if one of them was going to go first, I'd say Lindstrom. I would say Lindstrom probably, because he's what you're going to get from him. He's a guaranteed guard. He had played at a pretty high level at Boston College. So that's the second team offense. And then we're going to go on to the second team defense. Get the slot guy right off the bat. Jonathan Abrams, a slot, plays in the box a little bit, almost lines at a linebacker. Does play a little strong safety too. But yeah, he's my number 5 safety. I more like him in the box, but I'll throw him in here for the second team. I think Chauncey Gardner-Johnson more that true slot guy. It's almost like he's a slot corner. A little bit traditionally, the former safeties will come up in the box, almost that linebacker spot. Keep an eye on the tight ends, maybe rush the passer. Chauncey Gardner is going to man up, almost in a nickel corner position, but he's actually rushed the passer at times too. So Abram, hard hitter, that's mainly what he's known for. Looking at the other corners and safeties, Byron Murphy, it's hard to put him on the second team. Maybe he belongs on the first team too, but we only had 2 corners over there. And Julian Love, who I mentioned was a safe pick. Could end up being a slot guy, but I would like for him to start outside. I think he's a safe pick because very quick, very athletic, pass breakup machine. And then the 2 safeties, Deontay Thompson. His stock kind of died down, but I think people are getting a little too carried away with that. It did die down from during the season, and it should have, but not as much as people think. He's a very, very rangy safety, and that's a good thing. Nasir Adderley is the playmaker. Throw him in there as well. Let's check out some linebackers. Again, we got some 3-4 pass rush linebackers in here. The traditional linebackers, I got Jermaine Pratt, who actually could be either. He can be any linebacker position you want him to be. He's a former safety. He can cover. He can play inside linebacker, outside linebacker. He has sacks. One of my favorite players in the draft, Mac Wilson from Alabama, is their other linebacker there. Could be inside in a 3-4, outside in a 4-3 possibly. And then the outside linebackers, pass rushers I'm looking for. Ja'Kai Polite, his stock kind of died because he got hurt, couldn't really do anything at the combine, and didn't interview too well with some teams. We don't know about all the teams that he interviewed with. Don't think he did poorly with every single team. We already know the Rams said he checked out okay in that category. But look at the tape. He's a great pass rusher. He needs to work on his run-stopping ability. That's why he's not too far off from Brian Burns, but that's not why he's where Brian Burns is at, because Brian Burns is much better in stopping the run, but Polite's right there with him, getting after the quarterback. And Jalen Ferguson, a guy that's starting to grow on me. I mean, the goal is to get sacks. Well, pressure first, then the sacks. He has an NCAA record for sacks, and you go back and watch, and he came from different directions, different ways to get to the quarterback. Pretty impressive. Came from the DN spot, the outside linebacker spot where I like him, and almost even slid in to more of a, not an inside linebacker, but not where your traditional 3-4 outside linebacker would rush from. So two good things. He can do multiple things, but mainly if you plug him in the right spot, which I think is 3-4 outside linebacker, I'm fine with 4-3 end as well. If you plug him there, keep him there, he may actually be better, which is scary. And then we're looking at the defensive line then. The 2 defensive ends, Rashawn Gary from Michigan, who could be a 3-4 end, but because of his athleticism, I like him at 4-3 end here out of Michigan. And then Cleveland Farrell from Clemson, and the 2 D linemen are both from Clemson. Tough to see these guys on a second team too. Christian Wilkins and Dexter Lawrence. Wilkins, pretty balanced, can do a little bit of both passing and run game. Dexter Lawrence, freshman year, had 7 sacks, so we know he has that in him, but mainly an elite run stopper. So 3 out of the 4-3 D linemen here are Clemson D linemen, the best line in college football, maybe history, and that's why they won big reason why they won the national championship. So that's crazy to see them on the second team here. Yeah, this is a good team. It shows how good the defense is right here, even the offense too. But having a lot of these guys on a second team, pretty ridiculous. A lot of upside in a lot of these guys. So that's going to do it for my two teams, all draft teams, all rookie teams. They're not quite rookies yet. Can't wait for that draft. We're going to be live during it. A couple more videos, like I said, to get to final mocks, trade scenarios. Got to do my guys video. I do it every year. My favorite guys in the draft. But that's going to do it for this video. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Thanks for the support. Goodbye.